To you all, a good Sabbath to you all. This is Bill Bullock, and I'm coming to you live this morning from the Biblical Lifestyle Center in Texarkana, USA. Get your listening ears on. Get a cup of coffee if you wish to have one, or a cup of tea, and a notepad, and maybe your written Bible, and let's join together for a little while on this Sabbath to discuss the Holy One's beautiful Torah. This week we are in Parsha number 7 of the 54. We are in the 7th week of the Torah cycle, and this is Parsha Vayetze. Vayetze means "and he departed," or he broke forth, and he broke out and left. And so that's what we're into. We're talking about a departure into a new era, a new challenge, a new situation. And that's particularly we'll talk about who that is breaking out and what that means for us and where he's breaking into and what that entails and what that will mean for us as well. So welcome, Shabbat Shalom. The text that we're going to be studying, the address for the Revelation stream we're going to be drinking from, is Genesis 28 verse 10 actually, through chapter 32 verse 3. So Genesis 28:10 through 33:3, about 5 chapters, or 4 parts of 5 chapters at least, in the beautiful Torah. Our theme this year in this particular cycle through the Torah is walking in the light. I hope you've been experiencing that. It's one thing to walk through the world in darkness. It's one thing to walk through the world in confusion. It's one thing to walk through the world in disillusionment or anxiety or fear. It's another thing altogether, and it is the plan of the Creator of the universe for you, for me, for all who are within the sound of my voice or within the range of Torah's message, to walk in the light. To walk in the light where the source of all light is, to walk in the light where understanding comes from, to walk in the light where life exists and photosynthesis occurs and energy takes place, the walking in the light. I hope you've enjoyed the time of learning how to walk in the light. Oh, we're just getting started. Let's dig in a little deeper. Walking in the light and doing what? Discovering in the light the secret wisdom that's encoded in Torah's timeless stories. This is episode number 7 of that great quest. Now, that means that we're in the Parsha. The storyteller is telling stories about our forefathers, about men who we can relate to, men and women we can relate to, families that we can relate to, because they seem a lot like us. They're not superheroes. They're not some kind of holier than thou people. They had real lives. They had real challenges. They had real flesh. They had a real pseudo-intellect competing with their neshama, their God-given source of life. They had these things just like we do. So we can now the stories that are being told by the great storyteller are designed to let us know that we are not alone in this world. And we're learning the stories about all these people, the Avot, or the fathers, the patriarchs as they're called, the ancients as some call them, about these families and these matriarchs and these imot that we have. We're learning about them, but it's not just learning about the characters in the story. It's not just learning about the story. What we're learning about, what we're beginning to know, is not just story, it's the storyteller. The storyteller is the one who is introducing himself to us, revealing himself and his ways and his thoughts and his heart and his motives and his plans to us. So that's why we call it walking in the light. It's not just getting informed about some stories, about some historical or even prophetic stories. It's getting to know the Creator of the universe and to walk with Him in trust and in love and compassion. So we are now into the 7th week of our Torah studies. This is the week of introduction to exile. to long-term exile. We've had short-term exiles with Yitzhak going to Gerar, with Abraham before him going into Egypt for a short period of time, then later to Gerar. We've had experiences of short-term exile, but now we're going to have a period of extended exile, and that has its own set of challenges. That has its own set of temptations and tests. That has its own set of seductions. That has its own set of challenges that we must face. So we're going to step up our game, or have to step up our game. And the Creator is going to reveal how He relates to people in the times of the stepped up game and of greater exile. This is part of the lot of the human condition. Part of human condition is there will be seasons of extended exile. Life is not a rose garden. Life is not always fair. We are not always, I would dare say, we're not ever in control. We're never in a majority. We're never going to be the ones who dictate policy or dictate legislation or morality to other people. We are designed to function as a minority. And as a minority, we are moved from place to place, deployed from physical location and nationality and nation to nation. It's part of the grand plan, sowing us like seed among the nations, letting us get planted there, and then whenever the planting reaches a mature level, to pulling us out and saying, depart from her, my people. So this is the parsha of exile, a prototype of something that will be known prophetically as the time of Jacob's trouble. Are you listening? Are you ready? Last week, we learned in Parsha Toldot about the part of the plan of the Creator of the universe that involves us having an antithesis, a rival on the earth. Always someone counterbalancing us, someone pushing against us, someone that is giving us resistance or that we are having to resist. Yaakov and Esav. Last week before that, we had the previous introduction was to Ishmael and Yitzhak. Before that, we could go on and back into the history times of Cain and Hevel. So you understand this has been a situation all along. The antithesis initiative is a part of the plan of the Creator to spur us. We need iron sharpening iron. We need to be tested. We need to face resistance. We need to face challenges. Or else, how could we become transcenders and overcomers? How can we give the world something, offer the world something that the rest of the world does not offer? How do we offer a way of transcendence, the way of life and overcoming? So last week, we were really introduced in detail to personal and ethno-cultural archetype training. I'll repeat that phrase because I want you to understand it's two phases: personal archetype training and ethno-cultural archetype training. The personal personal archetype training was Yaakov's relations with Esav, and the jostling and the competitiveness and the sense of insecurity and the sense of constant having to be at their best and fend off the attacks, the war, and the challenges of the adversary. That's the personal archetype training. We learned that we're always engaged in that. It will never go away. It is part of our training protocol for being the special forces of the Creator of the universe sent forth into the earth to bring forth a great harvest of souls. The second part of it, the most powerful and most painful part of the archetype training that we undergo, was also introduced last week as Yitzhak and his family moved off because of a famine in the land, had to move off, migrate to Gerar, the land of the Philistine, the angry, selfish, self-willed, violent, and lustful, perverse Philistines, as they're called in the King James Version. And these people under the headship of Abimelech, the king, and Phicol, his military commander, his false prophet, as it were, is those who's in charge of his armies and his minions. They hated us, and they showed us this ethno-cultural archetype that we'll have to deal with. And so we learned what we call covenant envy, but the world tends to call anti-Semitism. This was really introduced last week in the Antithesis Initiative, Parsha, which was told. That's where we left last week. That was what we did. This week, we're going to go into a new season. We're not going to be faced directly with anti-Semitism / covenant envy. We're going to deal with living in exile. Exile protocol, I call it. This is the week of learning exile protocol. So welcome, my dear friends and family. Welcome to the next phase of Torah's essential life skill training for sons and daughters of the covenant. The essential life skill training program that deals with double talk in the society, disinformation in the public arena, delusion in all forms of communication and transactions in the marketplace, indoctrination and over-regulation and manipulation and control by governmental authority figures. Welcome to the next phase of Torah's essential life skill training, dealing with double talk, disinformation, delusion, indoctrination, and manipulation. You see, this section of the Holy One's radical training program for transcenders and overcomers like us, may it be, introduces us to the dark energy-fueled world of societal delusions, the lie matrix under which the raging nations, each one of them operates. Each raging nation, each of the collectives of the world that we might encounter, or we will encounter, or we will ever encounter, either us or our children or our children's children. All of these collectives of the world have this in common. They have a lie matrix under which they operate. They do not have the Holy One and His wisdom and His truth, so therefore they have a substitute. They have a copying, a attempt to bring about wisdom through their own humanistic approach. Sometimes it takes the form of philosophy, sometimes political theory, sometimes ideology, sometimes formal religion. But whatever form it takes, it's all the same. It's a dark, energy-fueled web of societal delusion. Oh, we're going to have to deal with it. Well, that's going to be the biggest thing we have to deal with in this world is societal, dark energy fueled web of delusion. Well, we're going to learn this week that when the personal antithesis initiative seems to have backfired big time, it really hasn't. When we seem to have failed in our relationships with our personal rivals, like when Yaakov seemed to have failed, and to some degree, as it looked at on a surface, did fail in his relationships with Esau and the competition. And he resorted to Esau's ways. He resorted to deception. He resorted to perverse ways of doing things. And when that happens, it's not the end. But we find ourselves that the whole world then becomes an antithesis to us. It becomes a bigger antithesis than just one personal rival. The entire world. We reap what we sow if we do not handle the initial antithesis initiative well. We reap what we sow, and it's multiplied. And a whole culture, a whole nation, the whole world around us seems to be full of antithesis types. Because, you see, this is cultural perversion. This is the lie matrix of the cultures. And we have to then encounter, are you listening? Because this is important for us. Learn to encounter and navigate through daily insults and traumas, and mini traumas and maxi traumas, and seemingly endless temptations, and the drama that goes with exile in a country, in a nation, amongst a collective that has got a lie matrix, an indoctrination, a propaganda stream that they are fallen under the spell of. Well, I know that seems a little shocking to you. If you wanted a story of ideal romance, if you wanted to have an illusion that everything was going to be good and we didn't really have to do anything besides just sit back and eat grapes all day, have someone feed us grapes all day, this is not the story for you. This is not the world for you, because that's not going to happen. The great storyteller does not sugarcoat things for us as his audience. The great storyteller tells it like it is. He is training us, you see, to do some very difficult and some very dangerous things. He is training us to do the difficult and dangerous work of counterbalancing and neutralizing nation rage and cultural delusion, societal delusion. He is training us, human beings, of the seed of Abraham and under the trust matrix of Abraham, to do the difficult and dangerous work of counterbalancing and neutralizing nation rage and societal delusion. So, the stories that he tells us are not stories that we all smile and think are wonderful. The stories he tells us challenge us to the core. The stories he tells us are designed to introduce us to and to prepare us for and to navigate every kind of conflict, every kind of opposition, every kind of persecution, every kind of perversion that the sons of the covenant will encounter in this age, in this generation, or the next. The Holy One has a plan. He has a plan to redeem humanity as a species and to do it bloodline by bloodline, household by household, family by family, individual by individual, as many as will come to the sound of his voice and the call of his cry. And to do also to restore creation, the ecosystem, to its original intended state of beauty and of fruitfulness and of shalom and of harmonious interaction. And he intends to use us as his tool, as his people, as his secret agents to handle and bring shalom, if not tikkun, into situations, one by one, situations that would cause others and will call others around us to revert to animalistic fight and flight mode, if not come undone altogether. You see, our divine mentor, the creator of the universe, wants all of his covenant partners and his courtiers on earth to recognize and manage something. We have to manage the Ra, the King James Version calls it evil, the Shakat, the King James Version calls it corruption, and the Hamas, the King James Version calls it violence, but it could also include all levels of cruelty and oppression and selfishness. So he wants us to handle those things and recognize them when we see them in others, and we discover them within ourselves. And so we are not to be surprised. We should never be surprised at or repulsed by the troubling stories that Torah's author tells us. He's trying to train us to recognize the Ra, Shakat, and Hamas, and the folly and the vanity and the perversion in others and in ourselves, and to transcend and to show a more excellent way. So get ready. Gird up your loins. Take a deep breath. Let's say the Baruch Hu blessing. Then we'll read Psalm 119, 18 to 19 aloud. And then we will plunge right in. The Baruch Hu is the blessing before reading from the Torah. Sing it with me if you know it. It's in Hebrew, of the Hebrew. Touch your spirit and awaken your neshama, your God-breathed, eternal spirit within. Baruch Hu Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amin V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah. And now Psalm 119, 18 through 19. Open our eyes, O Holy One, that we may see wondrous things in your Torah. For we are just strangers in the earth. So do not hide your instructions for living from us. And now, gather around, children of the Most High, sons and daughters of the covenant. It's story time again. Let's set the stage for this story. We are, as we said, 7 weeks into Torah's amazing storyline. That puts us in the heart of that section of Torah called the Testimonies of the fathers, the testimonies of the avot, the testimonies of the patriarchs. In the course of these first 6 weeks, we have come to know and stand in awe at both the genius of and the benevolence of the Creator of the universe. I hope you're getting to know him well. I hope you're sensing his beauty and his majesty and his goodness and the brilliance of his plan and the calling of his heart to your heart to come and join the plan. But we have learned that the Creator did not leave humanity on earth without a plan of support and a network of support and guidance and overwatch and oversight. Thank heaven he has provided for us all these things: support, guidance, overwatch, and oversight. Now, in each epoch and each generation that we have read about so far and that we will ever read about or ever live, he has provided, he will provide mankind a witness, a testimony through that witness of his better way. He started the stories with Adam and Hava, and those people were his witness. Then the next generation was Hevel and Cain and Seth, or Seth as he's called in the King James Version of the Bible in the Western world. And then he went further with Hanok, Enoch as he's called in the Western world, Methuselah or Methuselah, and different factors. And then down to Noah and Ham and Shem and Japhet, and then down each generation, each epoch. Then came Nimrod and the Tower of Babel people, the Tower people. And we then got introduced to the era of the raging nations, the times of the Gentiles, as it's sometimes called, with Egypt dominating on the west and Ashur or Babylon on the east, but in between and all around the world, subject to the domination of the west and the east powers, were individual collective nations and groups and ethnicities, all warring against each other. This is the era of the raging nations. And we were introduced to it when the Hebrew language was pulled out of the world at the time of Nimrod and the Tower people of Babel. Then we were introduced to Abraham and Sarah. The next witnesses and the next testimonies came through Abraham and Sarah, and through their counterparts Eliezer and Hagar, and through their counterparts Lot and Melchizedek. And we learned about that during that generation. And we heard the stories and the storylines and the subplots, and all those things left us with a witness, a testimony of the goodness of the Holy One and his grand plan. Then we went another generation. More recently, we had Yitzhak and Rivka. And Yitzhak is still alive, and we don't know about Rivka. But the counterbalance to Yitzhak and Rivka was Ishmael, and later the sons of Keturah, including Midian, who we'll see again many times in the Torah. We see these witnesses, testimonies, threads of divine protection, provision, supply, support through these stories. And now we are in the next generation. The next witness with the next testimony is a man we know as Yaakov. He came grabbing the heel, holding on to the heel of his twin brother, who we know as Esav. So with this generation, the witness will be Yaakov, and the stories and the testimonies will involve Yaakov and Esav, and, well, let's don't get too far ahead of ourselves. We'll find that out soon enough. Yaakov's story, and each subplot within that story, beloved, is going to feature an iron sharpening iron episode, or series of iron sharpening iron episodes. That's how the training takes place. Antithesis, a personal opposition, and then societal opposition on top of that. Yaakov, you see, is never going to be just Yaakov being Yaakov, doing Yaakov things. He is constantly being tested, trained, molded, and shaped by interactions with a nemesis. It will start with Esav, but it was going to broaden this week. We're going to go into full-blown exile in a nation collective. It's going to be called Haran, Mesopotamia, Padan Aram, Babylon, the Eastern power. We're going to be under the influence of the Eastern power. And there's a saying among the sages in Hebrew, and it's Ma'aseh Avot Siman Lebanim. Ma'aseh Avot Siman Lebanim. The life experiences of the fathers, of the patriarchs, serve as signposts, as directional and locational indicators for all of their seed, all their descendants. In other words, what happened and what we read about in the lives of the patriarchs repeats itself over and over again, the way the seed harvest cycle repeats itself over and over again. Seed time and harvest, summer and winter, cold and hot, until the world is no more. So as we read these stories of Yaakov and the iron sharpening iron that he had last week with Esau and this week with the sons of Haran, the sons of Laban, the sons of Mesopotamia, the sons of the eastern kings, as we do that, watch closely, pay careful attention, because this is not just Yaakov's story from history. This is our story today, tomorrow, and forever. And it is the story that we will have to deal with our seed and our descendants and our children's children as well. This is the repeating story. Last week, the specific primary iron sharpening iron nemesis character that Yaakov, our ancestor, had to navigate around was his fleshly, appetite-driven, dark, energy-obsessed twin brother Esau. So who will our patriarch and thus our next iron sharpening nemesis be? And of what will our patriarchs and thus our next critical special forces, more excellent way, training challenge consist? They will soon find out. Prepare, beloved. Prepare, my friends, to engage at the next level of covenant life. We'll transition from dealing with personal arch-rival opposition, which has its own challenges and is difficult enough, and sometimes we fail at. Prepare to engage at the next level, beyond personal arch-rival opposition, to dealing with man of lawlessness / lawless man, lawless one. Deception, manipulation, intimidation, and oppression, and us being a minority in that context, in that world. Exile, in other words. The context for our story that the great storyteller is going to tell us today, all the subplots that come with it, is going to be from Genesis 27:41, and then from 28:5 through 9. So 27:41 says, Esau hated Yaakov. As we have this personal antithesis, this personal archetype. Esau hated Yaakov because of the blessing with which his father blessed him, being Yaakov. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. My father is going to die soon, he thought. And then I will kill my brother Yaakov. Oh, shades of Cain and Hevel. Shades of historical problems, shades of future problems. Oh, the days of mourning for my father are at hand, Esau thought to himself and said in his heart. And then I'm going to kill my brother Yaakov. That's going to color everything we read about this week. And let's go on to the latter portion. So, in 28 of Genesis, verse 5 through 9, so Yitzhak sent Yaakov away because of the threat of Esau. Yitzhak sent Yaakov away. We're going to leave personal rival, confrontation and antithesis level and go to a greater antithesis level, societal lie level, indoctrination, deception, manipulation level. And so Yitzhak sent Yaakov away, and he went to Padan Aram, to Laban, and his character is going to be the greater of the antithesis. He's more than just, well, we'll get to that in a moment. He's more than just Laban, though. So he sent him he went to Padan Aram to Laban, the son of Bethuel, the Syrian, the brother of Rivkah. That's who Laban was, Laban, as he's called in the Western world. And he sent him to him, and this was Yaakov and Esau's mother, Rivkah was. And Esau saw that Yitzhak had blessed Yaakov and had sent him away to Padan Aram to take himself a wife from there. This is the purpose of the journey. One was to escape the wrath and the death threat of Esau. And secondly, maybe more importantly, to take him for himself a wife from there, from Padan Aram. This is a mystery that we will hopefully see its prophetic implications as well as its personal implications for Yaakov. So he sent him away. Esau saw that Yitzhak had blessed Yaakov and sent him away to Padan Aram to take for himself a wife from there. And that he had blessed him. As he blessed him, he gave him a charge, an instruction, saying, you must not take a wife. You must not take your wife, your Isha, from the daughters of Canaan. So he gave a negative instruction to Yaakov as he left. You must not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. But he went to go to Padan Aram and take a wife from there. And so Esau saw that and saw that Yaakov had shamad. He had listened. He had gotten in tune and rhythm and began to vibrate in resonance with what his father told him. Yitzhak told him he had shamad his father and his mother, and he had gone to Padan Aram. And then we are told that Esau then saw that the daughters of Canaan did not please his father Yitzhak. So Esau went to Ishmael, another antithesis character of the past. Yitzhak's antithesis character. He goes to Yitzhak's antithesis character, Ishmael, and he takes Mahalat, the daughter of Ishmael, who was also Abraham's son, the sister of Nabayot, to be his Isha, in addition to some other women that he had, which were Yehudit, King James Version calls her Judith, the daughter of Be'eri the Hittite, the sons of Het, and another woman that he claimed as his wife or as Isha was Basemat, the daughter of Elon, the son of Het, the descendant of Het, the Hittite, in other words. So now we have Esau is taking brides. He took the first two from the sons of Het, which were the Canaani different devolutions. And now he's taking Mahalat, the daughter of Yishmael. Oh, what a mess he's creating there in the promised land. And that's maybe why Yitzhak instructed Yaakov not to take a bride from the Canaani. But let's kind of back up for a second and just think about all this taking bride stuff. Looking for a bride, or several as the case may be, seems to be becoming a dominant theme in the storyteller's stories. We saw this with Avram, first with Hagar, Yisara, and then Hagar, and then Keturah. And now we see it repeating itself with Esau, first of all with Yehudit, and then Basemat, and then Mahalat. We have this multiple marriage convention that human beings have adopted. Nowhere are we ever told the creator of the universe suggested this was the way. But men have adopted it. Human beings have adopted it. Women have gone along with it. This multiple marriage convention humans have adopted without divine direction or instruction at all. Is this just personal choice? Is this just involving the people involved here? Or is this a prophetic image? Is perhaps there a mystery of the kingdom being involved? Perhaps the weddings and the marriages and the couplings that we're seeing take place, perhaps they're prophetic. Perhaps they're mysteries of the greater plan of the creator of the universe for the harvest coming from seed. But this multiple marriage convention has been adopted by men without divine direction. And it is how people have chosen to do, and it is resulting with some major implications for society. But remember this. Consider this at least. Consider that there may be far more going on than meets the eye. Consider that the storyteller may be telling us these stories with a twinkle in his eye and with a plan in his heart. Consider that possibly Yaakov, when we read about him, is not just Yaakov, and Esau is not just Esau. And these brides that are taken, these wives that are taken, these Ishaot that are taken, are not just the ones that are named. Consider that Laban, may not just be Lavan or Laban. Consider that Laban's daughters that we're going to meet in this parsha, Rachel and Leah, are not just Laban's daughters, but they're prophetic images. Perhaps This is about the rescue of Rachel and Laban and Leah and their seed as much as it is about the marriage of Yaakov to his brides. Perhaps consider that Laban's sons, the ones who raise up against Yaakov, the ones who create this animosity, this atmosphere of animosity and jealousy and hatred and anti-Semitism or covenant envy. Consider that Laban's sons may not just be Laban's sons. They may be prophetic of a group of people that will keep arising generation after generation and come to a great culmination in the latter part of days. Consider 1 Thessalonians 2, 3 through 4, for all those who like the apostolic scriptures and know them. Here's what Shaul said in 1 Thessalonians 2, 3 through 4. Let no one deceive you. That should key you to the great deceiver who is Laban. Let no one deceive you by any means. For that day, the day of the lawless man's revelation, will not come unless the falling away comes first. The departures come first. And the man of lawlessness or lawless one is revealed, and the son of perdition comes forth, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God, or all that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, declaring that he is God. That's a story about something the Holy One is wanting us to know, that Shaul is reporting to us. There is an event coming that is like an event past, that is going to be after the prototype of that. Well, let's move on to the opening aliyah, the opening verse, the opening phrases of our parsha. I will read it in Hebrew, and then I'll come behind for those of you whose neshama is awake, but your understanding of Hebrew is not mature yet. I'll try to give you as best a translation as I can. The first words of Parsha, the storyteller begins with Vayetze Yaakov mi Be'er Sheva. And then Yaakov departed, burst forth from Be'er Sheva. Vayelech Haranah. And he set off walking toward Haran. Now, wow, there's a great message here about leaving, departing, about breaking free, but running away maybe. So is it running away? Is it running away from the wrath of Esau, or is it running to? And so he tells us he's walking to Haran. He's going somewhere. He's not just running away. He is running to something. He's running into Haran. Now, what is Haran? It's both a city, an actual town, the town that was actually named after Abraham's brother, who passed away before Avram did, of course, before Avram was called even. Haran, the city was built, or the town was built in Upper Mesopotamia, part of the Babylonian region, where the kings of the east, the power structure of the east was in place and in force. He settled there, and so Haran is this village. So he's going to a natural village, but there's something more about Haran. Haran has a mystery behind it. Haran is is a noun taken from the Hebrew word harar, the verb root harar, chet resh. And when you change and you add the last consonant from the resh, the final resh, to a final form of the letter nun, you take this harar verb and you personalize it, and you put it in an ultimate kind of human form, or at least a physical form. And so it's the ultimate form of something. Form of what? What is harar? It's the ultimate form of harar, but what is harar? The verb harar means to burn, to glow, to emanate heat. To bring something by extreme heat to a flash point, like to smelt, as it would be, or to refine silver or gold or precious metal by heat. Hence, Haran means the place that will try you by fire, will cause the dross to separate from the silver or the gold. Well, this brings us to our purpose for these studies in Vayetze. And the purpose for the stories of Vayetze is to train you in being refined, to prepare you for extreme heat that will separate the silver, the gold from the dross. And be prepared that some things will be burned up and some things will be unpleasant as we melt in the pot. So for the next 3 weeks, this is going to be going on. We'll be in Haran, or in the aftermath of Haran. And during this 3-week period, and there's 2 3-week periods like this in the Hebrew year. They're kind of the 3 weeks in the summertime that lead up to the 9th of Av, Tisha B'Av, and the destruction of the temple and what we do at that time. This is the 3 weeks that lead up to Hanukkah, the Feast of Dedication, as it's called. In the Gospel of John, as it's called, or the testimony of Yohanan. So this 3 weeks that we're going through now is the 3 weeks of preparing for the Feast of Dedication, the Feast of Hanukkah. These two are parallel 3-week periods. The one in the summer that leads to Tisha B'Av, the one in the winter that leads to the Feast of Dedication called Hanukkah. Dedication, the Hebrew word for dedication is Hanukkah. And so it's not a new word. It's not something substituted. It is the Hebrew form. The Feast of Hanukkah is mentioned by Yohanan. And it is the idea of dedication, rededication. During this 3-week period, the spotlight of Torah is going to be upon Yaakov, his personal and cultural challenges, his encounters and conversations with the Creator that prepare him for those cultural and personal challenges, his maturation in the covenant calling through divinely orchestrated life experiences. In other words, Yaakov's, Israel's training program, and therefore ours. Let me continue with the story. Now we know that Yaakov has departed from Beersheba. We know that he has gone, set his feet and his face in the direction of and began to walk toward Haran, this place of extreme testing where silver and dross will be separated. Now it goes on. The storyteller continues. Vayivga makom vayalen sham. And he, being Yaakov, struck upon, lit at a certain place, a certain earth space. And he lodged there, set up his camp for the night. Ki ba hashemesh, because the sun had transitioned, had passed. In other words, the sun had gone down. Now, if you know the book of Ecclesiastes, or Kohelet, as it's called in Hebrew, you're going to know that there's a lot more involved than just the sun going down physically. It's about the whole realm of the darkness, the whole realm of, there's the Takat Ha'or, and Takat Ha'shemesh. Now, it goes on. The sun had transitioned. Vayikak me'avnei hamakom, and he took for himself, Yaakov took for himself one of the stones of that place, of that earth space. Vayashem me'rashotav, and he set it under his rosh, under his head. Hine sulam. Hine, behold, observe, sulam. He dreamt, and behold, sulam, a staircase, a ramp. Mutzav aretza, rose up, standing upon the earth. Behold, a staircase, a ramp was set up, standing upon the earth. This sulam is such a very important word. We translate it as ladder sometimes, but it's not like a ladder. It's like a staircase. It's like a ramp. It's like a portal between the worlds. The same gematria, the same numbers of sulam are found in Sinai, which is the place of the revelation of the Torah. And so we see this is a picture being drawn for us. It's also very similar to the Shulamite of the story of the Song of Songs of Solomon's, a mystical story of the relationship between the Holy One and the development of the relationship between the Holy One and his bride people, and his, we see taking a bride takes again his place. So we have Yaakov setting his head, laying his head upon a stone at this special earth space that we'll learn about later. And he has a dream, and Hine Sulam Mutsav Aretsa, and behold, a staircase, a ramp, a portal, like Sinai, or like the Shulamite stands, arises upon the earth. Mirosho Magia Shemeha. Let me try that again. Merosho Magia HaShemaya. Whose head, the head of which this ramp or staircase or Sinai or Shulamite imagery, the head of it pierced the heavens. V'hineh, and behold, what's on it? Malcheha, Elohim Olim v'yaradim bo, and angels of Elohim, of the Creator, ascended, and they are ascending, and they are descending upon it. V'hineh, and behold, he keeps saying this, and behold, it's such a stunning revelation is being downloaded before the exile begins, before the test of the trial of the great crucible of the testing melting pot takes place. V'hineh Adonai nitzav alav, and behold, the Holy One stood above it, being this sulam, this staircase, this portal, this gate. Ve'amar, and he said, Ani Adonai, I am the Holy One. Elohei Avram Avika, the God of your father, Avraham. Ve'elohei Yitzhak, and the God of Yitzhak. Ha'aretz asher ata shokev, the land on which you lie. Alehu lecha et nena al hazareka. I will give it, entrust it in stewardship to you and to your seed. Now, so you understand what he's just doing. This is the Creator of the universe has now undertaken to inject himself into earth space and talk in this dream state that Yaakov is in, to Yaakov, declaring first of all who he is. I am the Holy One. I am Adonai, Yod He Vave, Elohei Avram Vika. I am God of your father Avram, Elohei Yitzhak. I am the God of Yitzhak. I am the one who is continuing this covenant with you, in other words. And then he begins to go through the sequence of the covenant. The land on which you lie. The first part of the covenant is the land. Ha'aretz asher ata shochev, the land on which you lie. Aleha lecha, I will entrust it to you. Al et zareka, and to you and unto your seed. So now we have the I am of the Holy One, the covenant being restored, the reference to the patriarchs, the reference to the land, the reference to the seed. He goes on. The Creator of the universe speaks further to V'haya zareka ka'afar ha'aretz, and your seed, again with the seed promise, your seed will be as the dust of the earth. Uparetzta yama v'kedma, and you will spread, gush forth to west and to east, v'tzafona v'negva, and to north and south. V'nivrachu be'ata kol mishpachot ha'arma uvzarek. In other words, in you and in your seed will all the families of the earth be blessed, for the last part of the covenant promise as well. So we have these covenant being laid out once again, as it was laid out to Avram, and as it was laid out to Yitzhak. Now it's being laid out to Yaakov in this dream. He is being prepared for what's about to take place. And the story continues. The storyteller changes his voice now away from his own voice, and he tells us as a narrator, Vayikatz Yaakov mishmato, and then Yaakov awakened from his sleep state. Omer aken yesh Adonai b'makom hazeh, and he said, yes, truly the Holy One is in this earth space. Va'anoki lo yadati, and I did not recognize or understand or acknowledge him. I didn't know. Vayira vayomer ma nora hamakom hazeh, and he was in awe, and he said, how awe-striking is this earth space. Ein ze ki im be Elohim. This is none other than the house of the Creator God. V'zeh sha'ar ha'shamayim, and this is heaven's gateway or portal. Ha ha. This is quite a start for this season of exile, this season of prophetic exile, the season of extending the antithesis initiative from individual personal rivalries to cultural lies, to cultural deception, to cultural manipulation, cultural propaganda, to the culture of the anti-Messiah, to the culture of the Antiochus Epiphanes, to the characters, to the culture of the Roman Empire, for the culture of the Babylonian Empire, the culture of the Antichrist, New Babylon, Mystery Babylon of the end of days. We're being introduced to the greater scheme of what we're set up against and what we're to bring the light. As we walk in the light, and we bring the light of the Holy One into. Okay. Vayetze, to go out, to go forth, to be sown as seed, and then to germinate and sprout, to be birthed, to be launched, to be freed as from a womb, to go out on a mission under a deployment, to go out and engage in a redemption restoration campaign. This is Vayetze. This is the secret of the message, that we're called to go into this world on a mission, on a deployment, on a redemption restoration campaign, to engage in life the way that other people engage in it, but to engage with it with a different purpose and a different end. To engage in exploration or trade as we have to have a parnasah, an employment, a profession or an occupation, and yet not to be limited by that, but to also be involved in the great restoration, redemption campaign of the Creator, to go out as a freed calf and freed and emancipated slave, to be able to overcome and transcend the lies and the manipulations and the deceptions and lead people out of it, like he led Rachel and Leah and the children birthed to them, and also Zilpah and Bilhah, these maidservants of his wives. This is the idea, and ultimately to return home with a great harvest of sheaves, rejoicing. This is the idea of Vayetze. And in this parsha, let's talk about it. In this parsha, after being threatened with fratricide by his brother Esau, Yaakov goes away to his maternal uncle Laban's house in Haran. On the way, though, he has this beautiful encounter we just described and read about with the Holy One, with the Creator. The Creator is preparing him for what's going to take place. And through this radical experience, which is known as the revelation of Jacob's ladder, the Holy One introduces himself to Yaakov and awakens him to the fact that he's always here, that he has set up portals wherever, and we're designed to become the portals upon which heaven touches earth and angels ascend and descend. And through this encounter, the Holy One inspires and empowers Yaakov for all to face and overcome all the trials he's about to face in Laban's house of horrors, in the cultural antithesis of Padan Aram. When Yaakov arrives at the well at Haran in Padan Aram, he encounters one of the first societal problems: overthinking everything, overregulation, a lot of laws, but no real substance, no real ability to function and be functional. They overlaw themselves, but they don't. They accept this rule that you can't open the well, you can't drink from the well till 4 shepherds come. It's all about equality, it's all about equity, it's all about the DEI, it's all about whatever design it is. And they were so worried about equity, they don't water the sheep. They don't feed the sheep, they don't water the sheep. And so this overthinking and overregulation is the first thing that he finds and he encounters this cultural antithesis of Haran. But while he's at the well, he meets and becomes infatuated by this young shepherdess, Rachel, who's just a member of Laban's family. Yaakov introduces himself to Rachel as her first cousin and accompanies her to her father Laban's house. There he encounters Laban, and Laban pretends favor. He gives him a greeting. He gives him an embrace. Beware the embrace of Laban. Beware the embrace of secular culture. Beware the embrace of the kings of the East or any collective on earth. Beware of anyone who is not led and directed and guided by the Creator of the universe. He is taken in by Laban's pretension of favor and his embrace, and he agrees to work for Laban for 7 years to win the hand of Rachel, who he has met at the well. At the end of the 7 years, however, he encounters another thing about Laban. Laban never tells the truth. He always twists the truth. He always withholds certain information that's necessary. He always deceives. He always manipulates. He always controls. He always holds back what you really want and promises you something you will never have. At the end of 7 years, Laban pulls a bait and switch con. He substitutes Leah for Rachel, and Yaakov winds up working for Laban another 7 years for Rachel's hand. And that time he's also married to Leah. This multiple marriage, multiple partners thing the world seems to be doing in the absence of the Holy One. And his directions is going to have its complications. Well, cover your ears now, kids, if you're listening still. Over the next fortnight of years, Yaakov is going to father 6 children by Leah, 2 by her maid Zilpah, 1 by Rachel, and 2 by Rachel's maid Bilhah. It's over a fortnight, 14 years. He's going to, this is a far less than ideal situation to produce the kind of bait shalom that individual covenant marriages are supposed to produce. Yours and my marriages are supposed to produce, but there's something bigger going on. Yaakov was young. He was naive. He was extremely new. He was green as all get out at this People of the More Excellent Way gig the Holy One's got him engaged with and training him for. So while he was in Mesopotamia, in Padan Aram, he behaved like the Mesopotamians. He really had no choice. It was foisted upon him by deception, by Laban. Over the last 6 of the 20 years in Haranian exile, Yaakov went from being flat broke, though, to being the owner of a flock and a herd that eclipsed that of even the rich man Laban. Now, I would tell you how this miracle happened, but you probably wouldn't believe me. So I'm going to leave it to you to read it all about it for yourself. At the conclusion of the season of exile, the Holy One appeared to Yaakov again. And he told him that it was time to go home, back to Eretz Yisrael, back to the house of his father. So one day, while Laban and his sons were away at a sheep shearing festival, and that's another thing you learn about the nations. They have their own festivals. They have their own holidays, and they are very religious about those holidays. They think they're the most important things in the world. So all of Laban and his sons and he went away to the sheep shearing festival. They celebrated this big event, this big debauchery, eating and drinking and all the sorts of things that they do. And Yaakov and his family stayed home. They didn't involve themselves. The covenant family had learned not to involve themselves in this debauchery of the nations' festivals, nations' holidays, the collectives of the world's holidays. So while Laban and his sons were away on the sheep shearing festival, Yaakov and his family packed up their things. They took advantage of what the Holy One had said to them to go home, and they took their leave. When Laban and his sons came home from the festival, perhaps hungover, we don't know, they discovered that Yaakov, his family, and his livestock were all gone, and they were incensed. How dare they? Offended, outraged, craving vengeance. That's the nations. That's what we will face. Offended, outraged, and craving vengeance, as people of the raging nations tend to be, they ignored a divine warning to do Yaakov no harm, and they pursued him with vengeance. And they pursued his little family of pilgrims like dogs, and they caught them, and they cornered them, and prepared to do them harm, and they initiated a dramatic and a potentially catastrophic confrontation with them, and the stench of acute offense filled the air, though this is prophetic. I understand this is about to happen in every generation to come after. The stench of acute offense against us filled the air. The poison of sanctimonious, hypocritical ranting polluted the atmosphere. Oh, they knew how to overthink things and use pseudo-intellectual indoctrination and word games to slime everything and everyone they touch with uncleanness. Oh, the pulses were racing, fists were clenched, eyeballs bulged, the volume and pitch of voices intensified, insults and accusations flew, profanity was uttered, fighting words poured out. Not to worry. Remember the vision of the ladder or the staircase. Remember the portal is open, heaven touches earth. Remember the Holy One has not left us alone to deal with these things on our own. So not to worry. The Holy One will find a way to make this two work together for good. for those who love him, for those who are called according to his purpose, for those who are willing to participate in his grand plan for redemption of mankind and for restoration of creation to Edenic state of beauty, fruitfulness, and shalom. Well, beloved, my time with you is over for the day. I've run out of time. Thank you for joining and listening in. I hope you have now got a good foundation to work off of as you begin to go into this Parsha. As you begin to study it over the next 3 weeks and prepare yourself for this time of rededication to the covenant lifestyle of walking in the light. Shabbat Shalom. Drop me a note. Let me know you were here and where you're from. And I'll talk to you later next week. See you for the next week in Parsha Vayishlach.